A lesser-known detail about Inca curses is that they were often linked to specific huacas or natural phenomena. For instance, Inca shaman might invoke the spirit of a particularly dangerous mountain pass to bring misfortune upon a traveler, or the spirit of a stagnant swamp to cause a lingering illness. This localized magic made the curses feel even more immediate and inescapable, as if the very landscape was turning against the victim. You might feel a sudden unease as you pass a certain rock formation, remembering the stories of curses tied to that very spot. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back. Way back. To a time when the Andes Mountains weren't just a majestic backdrop, but a living, breathing entity, teeming with spirits, both benevolent and terrifying. You're about to wander through the misty peaks and sun-drenched valleys of the ancient Inca Empire, a civilization renowned for its engineering marvels and intricate social structures. But beneath that gleaming surface of gold and stone, there lurked a spiritual realm, guarded and navigated by figures whose practices would make your modern sensibilities shiver. We're talking about the Pacos, the Altomisayocs, the very shamans of the Inca, whose connection to the unseen world was as profound as it was, well, utterly unsettling. Just a heads up, if you were actually there, you probably wouldn't survive the first week. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The shaman, therefore, walked a fine line. Their power to heal was immense, bringing comfort and recovery to the afflicted. But their power to curse, though used less frequently, was a constant reminder of the darker forces they could command. This dual nature instilled both deep respect and a healthy dose of fear in the hearts of the common people. You would seek their healing in desperation, but you would also be careful not to offend them, knowing the potential consequences. You find yourself standing on a high Andean plateau, the thin air biting at your cheeks. Around you, the vast, imposing mountains rise, their snow-capped peaks piercing the cerulean sky. These aren't just geological formations to the Inca. They are Apus, powerful mountain deities, watchful and demanding. The sun, Inti, beats down with a sacred warmth, and the earth beneath your feet. Pachamama feels alive, a nurturing mother who also holds the power of destruction. This is the world of the ancient Inca, a world where the sacred and the mundane are inextricably intertwined, where every rustle of leaves, every flash of lightning, every birth and every death carries profound spiritual significance. And at the heart of this intricate web of belief stand the shamans, the intermediaries, the gatekeepers to the terrifying and wondrous practices that shaped Inca life. The ethical considerations, as we understand them today, were likely very different for the Inca. The shamans' actions, whether healing or cursing, were often seen as necessary interventions to maintain cosmic balance or to enforce social order. A curse might be seen as a form of divine justice, punishing a wrongdoer and restoring equilibrium. It's a complex moral landscape, far removed from our modern notions of good and evil. You see them now, moving through the bustling marketplaces or perhaps retreating into the quiet solitude of a mountain cave. They are not simply priests, their role is far more encompassing, far more primal. They are healers, diviners, spiritual guides, and sometimes the very instruments of cosmic balance, even if that balance demands a chilling price. Imagine, for a moment, the weight of such a responsibility. You are the one who speaks to the huacas, sacred objects or places, which could be anything from a towering mountain to a humble rock, a spring, or even a mummified ancestor. You are the one who interprets the whispers of the wind, the patterns of coca leaves, the entrails of sacrificed llamas. Your very existence is a bridge between the tangible world you inhabit and the invisible realms of gods, spirits, and ancestors. You might hear a story of a shaman who, after successfully curing a child of a mysterious illness, was then approached by a powerful lord to cast a curse on a rival. The shaman, bound by his duties and the perceived needs of the community, would have to weigh the spiritual consequences, knowing that such an act could draw the attention of powerful and potentially vengeful spirits. It's a job description that certainly doesn't come with a clear-cut moral compass. The Inca believed in a tripartite cosmos, the Hanan Pacha the upper world of the sun, moon, stars, and celestial deities, the Ke Pacha the middle world where humans and living creatures reside, and the U Ku Pacha the inner world, or underworld, of the dead, fertility, and new beginnings. The shaman, through various means, could traverse these realms, bringing messages, seeking cures, or perhaps invoking forces that most mortals would flee from in sheer terror. You watch as a shaman, perhaps an Altamisayok, a high-ranking shaman with the power to communicate directly with the Apos, prepares for a ceremony. His face is painted with geometric patterns, his clothing adorned with feathers and shells that shimmer in the sunlight. The air is thick with the scent of burning coca leaves and potent herbs, a prelude to the altered states of consciousness that are often a cornerstone of their practice. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the village, you reflect on the shaman's terrifying duality. They are the guardians of health, the bringers of comfort, but also the wielders of unseen weapons, capable of inflicting pain and misfortune. Their power is absolute in this world, a reflection of the profound and often frightening spiritual forces that govern the Inca cosmos. You realize that in this ancient world, the line between healer and executioner, blessing and bane, was often blurred, held only in the trembling hands of the shaman. This isn't some quaint village elder offering gentle advice. No, these shamans wield immense power, derived from their perceived ability to manipulate the very fabric of reality. They are consulted for everything predicting the success of a harvest, diagnosing illness, ensuring victory in battle, or even determining the fate of an entire community. You might approach them, trembling, seeking a cure for a mysterious ailment that has plagued your family, or perhaps begging for a prophecy about the impending drought. Their answers, however, are rarely simple, and often demand a sacrifice, not just of goods, but sometimes of something far more precious. Having witnessed the shaman's terrifying capacity for both healing and harm, you now find yourself drawn into another profound and equally unsettling aspect of their power, the ability to peer into the future, to interpret the subtle whispers of destiny, to understand the will of the gods through divination and omens. You are no longer just observing. You are caught in the anxious anticipation of a community awaiting a prophecy, a glimpse into what lies ahead, for good or ill. The air around you crackles with a nervous energy, as if the very fabric of time is being stretched and pulled by unseen hands. One common historical fact about the Inca is their incredible road system, the Capac Ñan, which stretched over 40,000 kilometers, connecting their vast empire. But while engineers built roads, it was the shamans who ensured the spiritual pathways remained open, that the Apus were appeased, and that the cosmic order was maintained. Think of them as the spiritual infrastructure of the empire, just as vital as the physical one. The Inca lived in a world where the future was not a blank slate, but a tapestry woven with threads of divine will and cosmic forces. Every unusual event, every natural phenomenon, every dream, held a potential message. It was the shaman's sacred duty and terrifying responsibility to decipher these signs. You might see villagers approaching the shaman, their faces etched with worry, seeking answers about a failing harvest, an impending battle, or a loved one's mysterious illness. Their lives, their very existence, often hinged on the shaman's interpretations. Now, consider a lesser-known detail: the Inca shamans often used specific types of hallucinogenic snuff. Not just the more commonly known ayahuasca or San Pedro cactus. These snuffs, often derived from plants like Anadenanthera colubrina vilca or Nicotiana tabacum wild tobacco, were inhaled through bone tubes, inducing powerful visions and allowing the shaman to enter a trance state. Imagine the sheer intensity of such an experience, the world dissolving into kaleidoscopic patterns, voices echoing from unseen dimensions, and the terrifying possibility of encountering malevolent spirits rather than benevolent ones. It wasn't a recreational journey, it was a perilous spiritual undertaking, fraught with danger and demanding immense mental fortitude. You can almost feel the burning sensation in your nostrils, the rush of disorienting visions, as the shaman inhales deeply, his eyes rolling back in his head. One of the most common and accessible forms of divination was the reading of coca leaves. You watch as a shaman, perhaps a yatiri, a specialist in divination, takes a handful of fresh coca leaves from a small, woven pouch. He murmurs ancient incantations over them, breathing his intent into the vibrant green foliage. Then, with a practiced flick of his wrist, he tosses the leaves onto a clean, ceremonial cloth spread on the ground. The way they fall, their orientation, the patterns they form, each detail holds significance. Some leaves might land face up, indicating good fortune, while others might land face down, signaling trouble. A leaf landing on its edge could signify a pivotal, uncertain event. It's like a cosmic Rorschach test, but with very real consequences. The role of the shaman was not static. It varied depending on their specialization and the specific needs of the community. Some were yatiri, diviners who read coca leaves or spider movements. Others were kolahuaya, master herbalists and healers, whose knowledge of medicinal plants was encyclopedic. Then there were the Wak Aichak, guardians of the Huacas, ensuring their sanctity and proper veneration. Each had their unique set of skills, but all shared the fundamental ability to bridge the gap between worlds. You might see a kolahuaya carefully gathering herbs in the misty dawn, his movements precise and reverent, knowing that the wrong plant could bring death instead of healing. Imagine the tension as the shaman meticulously examines the scattered leaves, his eyes darting from one to another, piecing together the narrative. He might pick up a specific leaf, turn it over, and then place it back down, as if engaged in a silent dialogue with the plant spirits. The interpretation is not always straightforward. It requires deep intuition, years of experience, and a profound connection to the spiritual realm. You hold your breath, waiting for his pronouncement. Knowing that his words could bring relief or despair, the Inca worldview was animistic. They believed that everything possessed a living essence, a spirit, the mountains, rivers, stones, animals, and even the weather patterns had their own consciousness and power. This belief system made the shaman's role even more critical. If a river spirit was angered, it could cause floods. If a mountain Apu was displeased, the crops could fail. It was the shaman's duty to interpret these signs, to understand the desires of these powerful entities, and to perform the necessary rituals to maintain harmony. You feel a sudden chill as a cloud passes over the sun, momentarily darkening the valley. Is it just a cloud, or a subtle sign from an Apu? Your modern mind struggles to dismiss the thought. A common historical fact about the Inca is their mastery of astronomy. They meticulously observed the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, not just for calendrical purposes, but also for astrological and divinatory insights. The positions of celestial bodies were believed to influence earthly events and reveal the will of the deities. Shamans would interpret eclipses, comets, and the rising and setting of certain constellations as powerful omens, often requiring immediate ritualistic responses to avert disaster or capitalize on divine favor. It's a bit like having a celestial weather forecast, but instead of rain, it predicts famine or war. The terrifying aspect of their practices often stemmed from the perceived necessity of maintaining this cosmic balance. When the balance was upset, when the gods were angry, or when a community faced existential threat, the solutions proposed by the shamans could be extreme. This often involved elaborate rituals, intense fasting, and, most chillingly, various forms of sacrifice. The idea was to offer something of immense value to the deities in exchange for their favor, or to appease their wrath. You might hear the distant, mournful cry of a llama being led to a ceremonial altar, its fate sealed by the shaman's decree. Another deeply unsettling method of divination involved the sacrifice of animals, particularly llamas and guinea pigs. After the animal was sacrificed, its entrails, especially the lungs and heart, would be carefully removed and examined. The patterns of the veins, the color of the organs, the presence of any abnormalities, all held profound meaning. A clear, healthy organ might indicate a positive outcome, while diseased or discolored organs could foretell misfortune, illness, or divine displeasure. You might feel a knot in your stomach as the shaman carefully probes the warm, glistening organs, seeking the truth within their fleshy folds. It's certainly not for the faint of heart, or the squeamish. Academics still debate whether the Inca shamanic practices were primarily about social control or genuine spiritual connection. While it's clear that the shamans held significant influence and power within the hierarchical Inca society, acting as advisors to the Sapa Inca, the emperor, and local leaders, many scholars argue that their beliefs and rituals were deeply rooted in a profound, albeit often terrifying, spiritual understanding of the cosmos. Was it manipulation, or a desperate attempt to understand and control an unpredictable world? Perhaps it was a complex blend of both. Historians still debate the extent to which these divinatory practices were truly predictive, or if they served more as a psychological tool to manage anxiety and provide a framework for decision-making in an unpredictable world. While modern scientific thought would dismiss the literal interpretation of entrails or coca leaves, the profound belief in these methods undoubtedly influenced the actions and morale of the Inca people. Was it genuine foresight, or a powerful form of collective self-fulfilling prophecy? The answer perhaps lies in the terrifying power of conviction. You observe a shaman preparing for a healing ritual. He doesn't just offer herbs, he journeys into the Uku Pacha, battling malevolent spirits that are believed to cause illness. He might perform a limpia, a spiritual cleansing, using smoke, eggs, or even guinea pigs passed over the body to absorb negative energies. The guinea pig, a common animal in the Andes, was not just food, it was a sacred tool for diagnosis and cleansing. Its cries believed to reveal the nature of the illness. You might flinch as the small animal squeals, its fate intertwined with the patient's recovery. A lesser-known detail about Inca divination is the practice of interpreting spider movements. Certain species of spiders were considered sacred, and their behavior, particularly how they moved across a web or the patterns they spun, could be read as omens. A shaman might place a spider in a specific ceremonial context and observe its movements, seeking guidance or warnings. Imagine the shaman hunched over a delicate spider web, his eyes intently following the tiny creature's every step, believing that the fate of a community could be revealed in its intricate dance. It's a truly unique form of arachnid-based fortune-telling. The shaman's power also extended to the realm of the dead. The Inca held immense reverence for their ancestors, believing that they continued to influence the living world. Mummified ancestors, known as malquis, were not buried away. They were brought out for ceremonies, offered food and drink, and consulted for advice. The shaman often acted as the conduit for these ancestral voices, ensuring the Malki were respected and their wisdom was heeded. Imagine a procession, the mummified remains of a revered ancestor, adorned in fine textiles, being carried through the village. A shaman walking alongside, whispering ancient prayers. It's a scene that blurs the line between life and death, comfort and unease. Dreams were also a crucial source of omens. The Inca believed that during sleep, the soul could travel to other realms, encountering spirits, ancestors, and deities, who would impart messages. Shamans were skilled dream interpreters, guiding individuals in the community in understanding the symbolic language of their nocturnal visions. If you had a particularly vivid or disturbing dream, you would immediately seek out the shaman, recounting every detail, hoping to uncover its hidden meaning before it manifested in waking life. You might recall a dream of a towering Apu frowning upon you, and the shaman's grim nod confirms your deepest fears. The terrifying nature of these practices wasn't just in the blood and sacrifice, but in the sheer unyielding belief in a world teeming with unseen forces. Forces that could be both nurturing and utterly destructive. You are a mere mortal, navigating this landscape, utterly dependent on the shaman's wisdom, or perhaps at their mercy. The very air seems to hum with the presence of these spirits, and the mountains loom, silent witnesses to millennia of ritual and belief. The sun dips lower, casting long, eerie shadows across the valley, and you realize that in this world, there is no escape from the spiritual. It is everywhere, all-encompassing, and profoundly, terrifyingly real. The terrifying aspect of these omens and prophecies was their perceived inevitability. If a shaman foretold a famine, a plague, or a military defeat, it was not merely a warning, it was often seen as a divine decree. While rituals and sacrifices could be performed to mitigate the predicted outcome, the underlying sense of dread and powerlessness in the face of destiny must have been immense. You are told that a great drought is coming, and you know, with a chilling certainty that your crops will wither and your family will suffer. Despite all your efforts, you are still on the Andean plateau, but now you are more than just an observer. You are walking the path, a rugged trail leading deep into the mountains, where those destined to become shamans face their most grueling trials. This isn't a path you choose lightly. It is a calling, a spiritual imperative, often recognized through vivid dreams, strange omens, or a mysterious illness that only those with special abilities can overcome. You might feel a sudden fever, inexplicable chills, or visions flashing through your mind, indicating that you have been chosen. The Sapa Inca himself would regularly consult with high-ranking shamans and diviners before making major decisions. From launching military campaigns to initiating large-scale construction projects, these divinatory consultations were not just a formality. They were seen as essential to securing divine approval and ensuring success. Imagine the weight on the shaman's shoulders, knowing that a misinterpretation could lead to the downfall of the empire, and perhaps his own swift and unpleasant end. It's a high-pressure job, even without the spiritual element. The journey to becoming an Inca shaman is nothing like enrolling in a modern university. It is a solitary, arduous undertaking, demanding total sacrifice and an unyielding will to confront your deepest fears. You don't just learn rituals or the names of deities. You must undergo a profound transformation, a symbolic death of your old self, to be reborn as one who can commune with other realms. This is a process that spans many years, sometimes a lifetime, under the strict tutelage of a master shaman who has walked through similar shadows themselves. The shamans also served as spiritual counselors, helping individuals and communities understand and cope with misfortune that had already occurred. If a family suffered repeated deaths or illnesses, the shaman would use divination to uncover the underlying spiritual cause, perhaps an ancestral curse or an unfulfilled obligation to a huaca. This offered a framework for understanding suffering, even if it didn't always provide immediate relief. It's a way of making sense of a chaotic world, even if that sense is terrifying. Imagine you are a young person, perhaps just entering adulthood, when the first signs appear, a lingering illness, leaving you weak and bedridden, yet no ordinary remedies bring relief. In your delirium, you see images of majestic apus, swirling river spirits, or departed ancestors whispering ancient words. This is the call. You are brought before an experienced shaman who looks into your eyes and sees the spark of potential, nodding solemnly, and thus begins your terrifying journey. You might hear a story of a shaman who, after interpreting a particularly dire omen from the flight of condors, advised the Sapa Inca to delay a military campaign. The emperor, trusting the shaman's insight, heeded the warning, only to later discover that the enemy had indeed prepared an ambush at the very time and place the shaman had foreseen. Such instances reinforce the shaman's authority and the terrifying accuracy of their divinatory powers. It's like having a crystal ball, but instead of seeing your future spouse, you see an army marching to its doom. The initial phase often involves isolation. You are separated from your family and community, taken to a remote location, perhaps a high mountain cave, a sacred grove, or an ancient ruin. Here, you must learn to survive in harsh conditions, not just physically but spiritually. You must fast, meditate for days, and confront absolute solitude. The purpose is to purify your body and mind, stripping away the distractions of the material world so you can become more attuned to the vibrations of the spiritual realm. You feel the gnawing hunger, the biting cold, and a silence so profound you can hear your own heartbeat. The power of suggestion and collective belief played a significant role in the efficacy of these prophecies. If a community firmly believed in a shaman's prediction, their actions and psychological state would often align with that belief, sometimes leading to the predicted outcome. This doesn't diminish the shaman's perceived power, but rather highlights the intricate relationship between belief, ritual, and reality in the Inca world. Then comes the period of learning. You will be taught about medicinal plants, not just their healing properties, but the spirits they embody. You will learn to recognize subtle signs in nature, the direction of the wind, the calls of birds, the shapes of clouds. Every element is a message, a whisper from the divine. You will be instructed in ancient rituals, songs, and prayers passed down through generations. words that hold the power to invoke or banish spirits. Historians still debate whether this knowledge was purely oral, or if there were some secret forms of record-keeping. But it's clear that memorization and deep understanding were paramount. As the sun begins its slow descent behind the towering Andean peaks, casting long, ominous shadows across the landscape, you feel the lingering presence of the unseen. The shamans, with their coca leaves, their animal entrails, and their celestial observations, were the guardians of this terrifying knowledge, the interpreters of fate. They offered a glimpse into the future, a future that was often uncertain, sometimes grim, but always imbued with divine significance. You realize that in this ancient world, ignorance was not bliss. Knowledge, even terrifying knowledge, was power, and the shamans held the key to unlocking it. A lesser-known detail is that apprentices often had to undergo extreme physical ordeals. This could include relentless trekking through treacherous terrain, carrying heavy loads, or enduring sleep deprivation for days. The goal wasn't just to build stamina, but to break the will, pushing you to your limits, and forcing you to seek strength from within, from the spiritual world you were trying to connect with. You might feel your legs ache, your lungs burn from the thin air, but you must continue, for giving up is not an option. You have delved into the shaman's ability to predict the future, but now you turn your gaze to the past, or rather, to the enduring presence of those who have departed. You are entering the realm of the dead, yet in the Inca world, death was not an ending but a transition, a profound shift in existence that only strengthened the bond between the living and the deceased. Here, the terrifying practices of the shamans take on a different hue, one of reverence and an almost unsettling intimacy with the mummified ancestors. You find yourself in a sacred burial site, perhaps a cavern high in the mountains, or a dedicated chamber within a noble's home, where the air is cool and still, permeated with the scent of ancient dust and profound respect. During your training, you will be introduced to hallucinogenic plants, powerful gateways to other realms. These are not recreational trips. They are guided, perilous journeys where you might encounter both benevolent spirit guides and terrifying entities. Your teacher will be there to protect you, to help you navigate these chaotic spiritual landscapes. But ultimately, you must confront what you see alone. You might find yourself soaring over mountains, conversing with gods, or being pursued by grotesque demons. One wrong step could lead to madness, or worse, being trapped in another dimension. For the Inca, death was not a separation, but a continuation of life in another form. The spirits of the dead, particularly revered ancestors and former rulers, were believed to retain their influence and power, acting as intermediaries with the gods and guardians of their living descendants. This belief system made ancestor worship a cornerstone of Inca society, and the shamans were the primary custodians of this sacred connection. You might feel a faint chill, not from the cold, but from the palpable presence of those who have long since passed, their silent gaze seeming to follow your every move. A common historical fact is that the Inca did not have a traditional writing system, instead using quipu, a complex system of knotted cords to record information. However, the spiritual knowledge of the shamans was not preserved in quipu. It was passed from teacher to student, mouth to ear, ensuring its secrecy and sacredness. Think of it as a living tradition, where each generation of shamans not only learned, but also added their own understanding of the spiritual world. The most striking manifestation of this reverence was the practice of mummification. While not every Inca person was mummified, the bodies of emperors Sapa Inca, high-ranking nobles, and particularly revered individuals were carefully preserved. This was not merely about embalming. It was about ensuring the physical continuity of their presence in the world, allowing them to remain active participants in the lives of the living. Imagine the painstaking process, the removal of internal organs, the drying of the body in the arid mountain air or with the aid of fire, and the careful wrapping in layers of fine textiles. It's a macabre art form, designed to defy the natural decay of time. You will learn to read signs from animals. A condor soaring overhead might be an omen of victory, while an owl hooting at night could be a warning of impending death. You will learn to interpret your dreams. As they are considered direct messages from deities or ancestors, every small detail matters, and you must develop an extraordinary perceptiveness to decipher these messages. for the lives of an entire community might depend on your accurate interpretation. A common historical fact is that the mummified bodies of the Sapa Inca, known as Malquis, were not buried away in tombs to be forgotten. Instead, they were kept in their palaces, attended by their loyal servants, and brought out for major ceremonies, feasts, and consultations. They were offered food and drink, dressed in new clothes, and even carried in grand processions through the streets of Cusco. You can almost hear the rustle of their ancient garments as they are moved, their silent presence commanding immense respect. It's like having your great-great-great-grandparents still living in the house, but they're just a bit quieter. Another terrifying aspect of the training is confronting death. You will be taught how to prepare the dead, how to perform funerary rites, and how to communicate with the spirits of the deceased. You might have to spend time in ancient tombs, or alongside mummified Malqui, learning to honor and seek guidance from the ancestors. This isn't just about overcoming your own fear of death, but about understanding that death is merely a doorway, not an end. The shamans played a crucial role in the entire process, from the preparation of the body to the ongoing veneration of the Malqui. They oversaw the mummification rituals, ensuring that every step was performed with the correct prayers and offerings to guide the spirit into its new form of existence. They were the ones who communicated with the Malqui, acting as conduits for their wisdom and advice. You might witness a shaman kneeling before a Malqui, murmuring questions, then listening intently for the subtle signs that indicated the ancestor's response. Perhaps a slight shift in the air, or a specific pattern in the smoke of burning offerings. Throughout this process, you will perform personal purification rituals, sometimes involving bathing in the icy cold waters of mountain lakes, or standing under powerful waterfalls to cleanse negative energies. You will learn to use sacred objects, special stones, shells, small pouches filled with herbs and amulets. Each item has its own huaca, its own spirit, and you must learn to respect and utilize them correctly. The terrifying aspect of this practice lay in the sheer power attributed to these mummified remains. An angry or neglected Malqui could bring misfortune, illness, or even death upon their descendants, or the entire community. Therefore, their care and veneration were paramount, a constant responsibility for the living. You might feel a sudden wave of anxiety, realizing the immense pressure on the living to keep their mummified ancestors appeased, lest they face their terrifying wrath from beyond the grave. You might find yourself performing a simulated Kapak Hucha ritual. The chilling child sacrifice ceremony we will explore more deeply later. While you are not actually sacrificing a child, you must go through the similar emotions and mental preparations. This is to prepare you for the difficult decisions and heavy responsibilities you will bear as a shaman. It is a harrowing lesson in ultimate sacrifice and the cost of cosmic balance. Historians still debate the exact methods and substances used in Inca mummification. While the dry Andean climate naturally aids preservation, evidence suggests that sophisticated techniques involving herbs, resins, and even the removal of brain matter were employed to ensure the longevity of the Malquis. The precision and success of these methods, especially without modern scientific knowledge, remain a subject of academic fascination. It raises the question, how much empirical knowledge did they truly possess, beyond their spiritual understanding? By the end of your training, you are no longer the person you once were. You have been forged by the harshness of the mountains, purified by isolation, and enlightened by spiritual visions. You have confronted your deepest fears and transcended them. You have learned to listen to the whispers of the cosmos and decipher its mysteries. You have become a bridge between the human world and the world of the gods. A lesser-known detail about Inca ancestor worship is the concept of Puran Machu. These were the mummified remains of people from pre-Inca cultures, often found in caves or ancient burial sites. Instead of being destroyed or ignored, these Puran Machu were sometimes adopted and venerated by Inca communities, particularly if they were discovered to possess unusual power or were associated with specific huacas. It highlights the Incas' pragmatic approach to spiritual power, recognizing it regardless of its origin. Imagine stumbling upon an ancient mummy in a cave, and instead of being terrified, your first thought is, this might be a powerful new ancestor to worship. As you return to your community, you are greeted with reverence and a touch of fear. You are no longer an ordinary member, you are a shaman, one who can see what others cannot, and do what others dare not. The weight of responsibility rests heavily on your shoulders, but with it comes a profound sense of purpose. You are the protector of your community, the healer of ailments, the guide in the darkness, and the maintainer of the delicate balance between realms. Beyond the grand Malqui of the emperors, ordinary families also practiced forms of ancestor veneration. While their deceased relatives might not have undergone full mummification, their bones or other remains would be kept in the home or in family burial caves, regularly visited and offered food and drink. The shamans would guide these family rituals, ensuring that the proper respect was shown and that the ancestral spirits remained benevolent. You might see a humble family gathering around a small bundle of bones, a shaman leading them in quiet prayer, a testament to the enduring bond of kinship. You might feel a strange sense of power, but also a deep solitude. This path has set you apart, forever changed. You have seen things no one else can see, and carry secrets no one else can understand. And as night falls over the Andes, you know that your journey as a shaman has only just begun. Each day will bring new challenges, new mysteries to unravel, and new entities to confront. The shamans also acted as spiritual guardians of the burial sites, ensuring their sanctity and preventing desecration. They understood the pathways between the world of the living and the world of the dead, and could perceive any disturbances that might anger the ancestral spirits. This often involved performing protective rituals, or even confronting those who dared to disturb the resting places of the deceased. You might feel a prickling sensation on your skin as you approach a burial cave, sensing the shaman's protective aura, a silent warning to respect the dead. You stand at the threshold of a new understanding, a new terror, as the shaman before you prepares the sacred plants. This isn't a casual gathering of herbs for a soothing tea. These are substances of immense power, carefully cultivated, harvested, and prepared to unlock the doors of perception, to tear open the veil between your world and the spirit realms. You've heard whispers of these plants, of the visions they induce, the profound insights they offer, and the sheer, unadulterated terror they can unleash. This is the terrifying gateway that the shamans willingly step through, time and again, to fulfill their sacred duties. The terrifying aspect of the Malqui was their perceived agency. They were not inert objects, they were considered living, breathing entities, capable of expressing desires, displeasure, and even issuing commands. The shamans, as their interpreters, held immense power in relaying these messages from the dead. A Malqui might demand a new offering or express displeasure at a certain policy, effectively influencing political and social decisions. It's a chilling thought that the dead could still hold such sway over the living, their silent voices amplified by the shaman's interpretation. The air around you grows heavy with the scent of smoldering leaves and unfamiliar resins. The shaman moves with a deliberate, almost ritualistic grace, grinding dried plants in a stone mortar, mixing them with water from a sacred spring, or perhaps preparing a potent snuff. You watch, mesmerized and apprehensive, as he focuses his intent, his eyes distant, already half in another world. This isn't about getting high. It's about spiritual work, a perilous journey into the unknown, where the stakes are your sanity and, perhaps, your very soul. You might hear a story of a Sapa Inca who, facing a difficult decision regarding a military campaign, consulted the Malqui of his revered ancestor. The shaman, after a period of intense ritual and communication, relayed the ancestor's advice, which ultimately guided the emperor's strategy. Such instances reinforced the profound integration of ancestor worship into the highest levels of Inca governance, making the shamans and the dead they communed with incredibly influential figures. It's like having a board meeting, but one of the board members has been dead for 50 years and communicates through a medium. One of the most well-known hallucinogenic plants associated with the Andes is the San Pedro cactus Echinopsis pachanoi, known to the Inca as Huachuma. You might see its tall, ribbed columns growing in the drier valleys, seemingly innocuous, yet holding within its fleshy green interior the powerful psychoactive alkaloid mescaline. The shaman carefully slices a section, boils it for hours, creating a bitter, murky brew. Imagine the taste: earthy, acrid, a flavor that immediately signals the profound shift about to occur within your consciousness. You watch as the liquid is poured into a ceremonial cup, steam rising in faint tendrils, Carrying with it the promise of revelation and dread, the reverence for the dead also extended to the landscape itself. Certain mountains, caves, and springs were considered sacred because they were believed to be the dwelling places of ancestral spirits, or the sites where the ancestors first emerged. Shamans would lead pilgrimages to these sites, performing rituals and making offerings to honor the ancestral presence and seek their blessings. You might feel a deep sense of ancient history, a connection to countless generations, as you stand before a sacred cave, knowing that the spirits of the past are very much alive in this place. Another potent ally, though perhaps lesser known outside academic circles, was the Vilca tree Anadananthera colubrina, from which a powerful snuff was derived. Unlike the liquid brew of San Pedro, Vilca was often ground into a fine powder and inhaled through bone or wooden tubes, sometimes shared between two people. The immediate effect would have been a searing sensation in your nasal passages, followed by an almost instantaneous rush of altered perception. Think of a sudden, violent shift in reality, colors becoming impossibly vibrant, sounds echoing with new meaning, and the very air vibrating with unseen energy. This method was often used for rapid entry into trance states, particularly for divination or urgent communication with spirits. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long, purple shadows across the Andean landscape, you are left with a profound understanding of the Incas' relationship with death. It was not an end to be feared, but a transformation to be revered. A continuation of kinship and influence. The shamans, with their terrifying ability to bridge the gap between worlds, ensured that the voices of the ancestors were heard, their power acknowledged, and their presence honored. You realize that in this ancient world, the dead were not gone. They were simply waiting, silent and watchful, their influence as potent as ever, a constant reminder of the thin veil between life and what lies beyond. The shamans understood that these plants were not merely chemicals. They were living entities with their own spirits, their own wisdom, and their own demands. They were approached with profound respect, reverence, and a deep understanding of their potential dangers. To misuse them, to approach them without proper preparation or intent, was to invite disaster, to become lost in the spiritual wilderness, or to attract malevolent entities that could cling to you, causing illness or misfortune. You can almost feel the shaman's palpable respect for the plant, a silent communication passing between them as he prepares the dose. You have journeyed through the realms of life, death, and prophecy. But now, you are about to confront the truly terrifying, the invisible forces that permeated every aspect of the Inca cosmos, the spirits and demons that lurked just beyond the veil of ordinary perception. For the Inca, the world was not empty. It was teeming with unseen entities, some benevolent and guiding, others malevolent and destructive. The shaman's terrifying power was their ability to perceive, interact with, and sometimes even battle these unseen forces. You find yourself in a liminal space, perhaps a moonlit mountain pass, or a deep, echoing cavern, where the air feels charged with unseen presences, and every shadow seems to hold a watching eye. The purpose of ingesting these powerful substances was multifaceted. Primarily, it was to facilitate direct communication with the Apus, Huacas, and ancestral spirits. In the altered state, the shaman's soul was believed to leave the body, traversing the Hanan Pacha or Uku Pacha, seeking answers, healing, or guidance. You might witness the shaman's body become rigid, his breathing shallow, his eyes fixed on some distant, unseen point, as his consciousness embarks on its perilous journey. The Inca believed in a vibrant animistic universe, where everything possessed a living essence, a huaca. This extended beyond physical objects to include abstract concepts, natural phenomena, and, crucially, a vast pantheon of spirits. These spirits could be tied to specific places. A powerful waterfall, a gnarled tree, a unique rock formation, or they could be free-roaming entities, capable of influencing human affairs. The shaman, through their rigorous training and use of powerful plant teachers, cultivated the ability to perceive these spirits, to understand their intentions, and to navigate the complex spiritual landscape. You might feel a sudden gust of wind, not from the weather, but from the passing of an unseen entity, a shiver running down your spine. For healing, the visions induced by these plants could reveal the spiritual root of an illness. Perhaps a malevolent spirit had attached itself to a patient, or a past transgression had angered a deity. The shaman, in his trance, would confront these spiritual causes, battling the entities, negotiating with offended gods, or retrieving lost soul fragments. Imagine the shaman writhing slightly, his face contorted, as he grapples with an unseen force, a spiritual wrestling match playing out in the depths of his mind. It's not a pleasant sight, but it is necessary. While many spirits were neutral or benevolent, offering guidance or protection if properly appeased, there were also those that were inherently malevolent, or could become so if angered. These were the demons, the entities that brought illness, misfortune, and chaos. They were often associated with dark places, stagnant waters, or the restless spirits of those who had died violently or without proper funerary rites. The shaman's terrifying role often involved confronting these entities, protecting the community from their harmful influence, and sometimes banishing them back to the depths from which they came. Divination was another key application. By entering a trance, the shaman could peer into the future, interpret omens, or understand the will of the gods regarding a harvest, a battle, or a community decision. The visions might manifest as symbolic narratives, requiring careful interpretation upon the shaman's return to ordinary consciousness. You might hear him murmur fragmented words, describing a flock of condors flying in a specific formation, or the flow of a river changing color. Cryptic messages that hold the key to the community's fate. A common historical fact is that the Inca worshipped a vast pantheon of gods, with Inti, the sun god, and Pachamama, the earth goddess, being among the most prominent. However, beneath these major deities existed a complex hierarchy of lesser gods, localized huacas, and countless spirits, all of whom required attention and respect. The shamans were the primary navigators of this intricate spiritual bureaucracy, understanding which entity governed which aspect of life, and how to properly interact with each. It's like having a cosmic phone book, but instead of numbers, it's filled with ancient chants and specific offerings. The terrifying aspect of this gateway lies not just in the intensity of the hallucinations, but in the complete surrender of control. You are no longer in charge of your perceptions, your thoughts, or even your sense of self. The boundaries between you and the external world dissolve, and you are plunged into a reality that defies all logic and reason. You might encounter monstrous figures, ancient beings with eyes that pierce your very soul, or disorienting landscapes that twist and turn without warning. There's no turning back once the journey begins, and the only way out is through. Imagine a village plagued by a mysterious illness, affecting livestock and people alike. The crops begin to wither, and the springs run dry. The community turns to the shaman, desperate for answers. The shaman, entering a trance, might journey into the Uku Pacha, the underworld, to confront the malevolent spirit believed to be causing the affliction. This spiritual battle is not metaphorical. It is a terrifying, visceral struggle in the shaman's mind, where they must use their spiritual power, their knowledge of ancient rituals, and their courage to overcome the demonic entity. You might hear the shaman groaning, thrashing slightly, as if wrestling with an unseen opponent. His face contorted in a silent scream. Silent. A common historical fact is that the Inca Empire was vast and highly organized, with a centralized government and a complex bureaucracy. Yet, despite this sophisticated political structure, the spiritual guidance provided by shamans, often through these very plant-induced journeys, remained absolutely crucial for decision-making at all levels, from the Sapa Inca down to the smallest village. It highlights how deeply integrated the spiritual realm was into every facet of Inca life. A lesser-known detail about Inca spiritual beliefs is the concept of Supay. While often translated as devil or demon by the Spanish conquistadors, Supay in the Inca worldview was a more complex figure. Supay was not purely evil. He was often associated with both death and fertility, the underworld, and the forces of nature that could be both destructive and creative. He was a trickster, a powerful spirit who could bring misfortune, but also, if properly invoked, could bring abundance. This duality made interacting with Supay particularly terrifying, as one never knew which aspect of his power would manifest. It's like dealing with a cosmic wildcard, where the outcome is always uncertain. Historians still debate the extent to which the Sapa Inca himself, or the highest echelons of the Inca priesthood, regularly engaged in these intense hallucinogenic journeys, or if they primarily relied on the interpretations of specialized shamans. While some evidence suggests the emperor might have partaken on rare, highly significant occasions, the daily, perilous spiritual work was likely delegated to those specifically trained and chosen for it. It raises the question, was the emperor's power truly divine? Or was it carefully curated through the shaman's terrifying insights? The shaman's toolkit for dealing with these spirits and demons was diverse. They might use protective amulets, made from special stones, bones, or feathers, imbued with spiritual power. They would perform elaborate cleansing rituals, using smoke from sacred herbs like muña or palo santo to purify spaces and individuals from negative energies. They might also use loud noises, drumming, chanting, or even the blowing of conch shells to scare away malevolent entities. You might feel the rhythmic beat of a drum vibrating through your chest, a primal sound designed to ward off unseen threats. You might witness the shaman's body convulsing, or hear guttural sounds escaping his lips as he battles unseen forces. The journey is not always one of blissful enlightenment. It can be a terrifying confrontation with your own inner demons, with the collective fears of the community, or with malevolent spirits intent on causing harm. There are stories, whispered in hushed tones, of shamans who never fully returned from these journeys, their minds shattered, their spirits lost in the labyrinthine depths of the Ukupecha. This is why the presence of a master shaman, or a trusted assistant, was crucial, to guide the traveler, to protect their physical body, and to help them reintegrate upon their return. The terrifying aspect of these interactions was the constant threat of spiritual contamination or attack. A shaman who journeyed too deeply into the underworld, or who angered a powerful demon, risked becoming possessed, falling ill, or even losing their mind. The line between the shaman and the spirit could become dangerously blurred, making their work incredibly perilous. You might see a shaman, after a particularly intense session, looking utterly drained, his eyes distant, as if he has just returned from a place no mortal should ever visit. It's a job that comes with a very real risk of spiritual burnout. Or worse, a lesser-known detail about Inca shamanic plant use is the importance of plant teachers or plant spirits. Shamans believed that each plant had a unique spirit or intelligence that could teach them, guide them, and heal them. It wasn't just about the chemical compounds, it was about forming a relationship with the plant's essence. So, when a shaman ingested San Pedro or Vilca, they weren't just taking a drug. They were entering into a sacred communion with a powerful ancient being. Imagine the plant itself speaking to you, not in words, but in a torrent of images, emotions, and profound understandings that reshape your entire worldview. It's like having a conversation with a wise, ancient entity that has existed for millennia. Historians still debate the precise origins and evolution of specific demonic figures in the Inca pantheon. While some malevolent spirits seem to be indigenous to Andean belief systems, others might have been influenced by interactions with neighboring cultures or even later by the arrival of the Spanish and their Christian concepts of evil. This fluidity in belief systems makes it challenging to pinpoint the exact nature of every demon the Inca shamans confronted. It raises the question, were they battling truly ancient entities? Or were some of these terrors born from cultural exchange and evolving fears? The preparation for these journeys was as rigorous as the journey itself. Fasting, sexual abstinence, and specific dietary restrictions were common, all designed to purify the body and mind, making it a more receptive vessel for spiritual communication. You might have to abstain from certain foods for days, feeling the hunger pangs, knowing that this physical discomfort is a part of the spiritual discipline. This wasn't a party trick, it was a sacred, often terrifying, commitment. The shamans also had to contend with the restless spirits of the unburied or those who had died tragically. These spirits, known as Aya, could wander the earth, causing disturbances, illness, or nightmares. It was the shaman's duty to guide these lost souls to their proper resting place, or to appease them through specific rituals, ensuring they did not linger and cause harm to the living. You might hear a shaman performing a mournful chant, a spiritual lullaby designed to soothe a restless spirit and help it cross over. The aftermath of such a journey could be equally intense. Upon returning to ordinary consciousness, the shaman might experience profound fatigue, disorientation, or a lingering sense of awe and terror from what they had witnessed. The integration of these experiences was crucial. The shaman would spend hours, sometimes days, interpreting the visions, translating the symbolic messages into practical advice for the community. You might see the shaman, pale and exhausted, sketching symbols on the ground, or recounting fragmented narratives, slowly piecing together the profound insights gained from his terrifying voyage. Beyond individual spirits, there were also collective malevolent forces. For example, the hulpas were ancient burial towers, often associated with the spirits of pre-Inca peoples. While some were revered, others were seen as dangerous, harboring powerful, potentially hostile spirits. Shamans would perform protective rituals around these sites, or advise communities on how to avoid disturbing them, lest they unleash ancient curses or plagues. Imagine walking past a crumbling stone tower, knowing that within its walls reside ancient, potentially vengeful spirits, and only the shaman can keep them at bay. Consider the risk involved. In a society where the shaman's insights dictated everything from agricultural cycles to military campaigns, a misinterpretation of a vision could have catastrophic consequences. The pressure to get it right, to accurately navigate the spirit world and bring back clear, actionable intelligence, must have been immense. It's like being a cosmic air traffic controller, but instead of planes, you're guiding the fate of an entire civilization through the turbulent skies of the spirit world. The concept of spiritual shadows or doppelgangers was also present. It was believed that a person's shadow could be separated from their body, leading to illness or death. Malevolent spirits could also take on the form of a person's shadow, following them and draining their vitality. The shaman's role in such cases was to identify the spiritual attack and perform rituals to reintegrate the shadow or banish the parasitic entity. You might feel a sudden cold spot behind you, a fleeting sense of something unseen, and wonder if your own shadow is truly your own. The use of these plants also served as a powerful tool for initiation and spiritual growth for aspiring shamans. As you experienced in your own simulated training, these were not just theoretical lessons. They were direct, visceral encounters with the spiritual realities that defined the Inca cosmos. The terrifying visions, the confrontation with one's own mortality and insignificance in the face of cosmic power, were all part of the forging process, shaping a mere mortal into a true intermediary. The shamans also had to be wary of other shamans who might wield their power for malevolent purposes, sending curses or spiritual attacks. This led to a form of spiritual warfare, where shamans would engage in psychic battles, projecting their spiritual energy to defend their community or counter an enemy's dark magic. Imagine two shamans miles apart, locked in an unseen struggle, their spiritual proxies clashing in the ethereal realms. A terrifying duel fought with intent and ancient power. It's like a magical chess match, but the pieces are your very souls. You might hear a faint, almost imperceptible hum in the air now, a lingering echo of the shaman's journey. The gateway has been opened, and though it has closed, the imprint of its terrifying power remains. You realize that for the Inca, the line between reality and the spiritual realm was not a line at all, but a permeable membrane, constantly shifting, constantly demanding attention and respect. And it was these powerful plant teachers, these terrifying gateways, that allowed the shamans to walk both sides of that membrane, bringing back knowledge, healing, and sometimes a chilling glimpse into the true nature of their universe. The terrifying reality of the unseen world meant that even mundane activities could be fraught with spiritual peril. Crossing a river, entering a cave, or even building a new home could potentially disturb a powerful spirit, requiring the shaman's intervention to ensure safety and blessings. The shamans were constantly vigilant, interpreting every unusual event as a potential sign of spiritual activity, guiding their people through a world alive with hidden dangers. The air, once thick with the scent of sacred herbs, now carries a different, more chilling aroma, the faint, metallic tang of blood. You have stepped from the realm of altered consciousness into the stark, terrifying reality of Inca sacrificial rituals. This is where the profound reverence for the cosmos met its most extreme expression. where the ultimate offering was made to appease demanding deities and maintain the delicate balance of the universe. You stand before an Ushnu, a ceremonial stone platform, perhaps in the heart of a grand Inca city, or high on a remote mountain peak, where the sky feels impossibly close and the earth hums with ancient power. As the night deepens and the stars begin to emerge, pinpricks of light in the vast Andean sky, you are left with a profound sense of the Inca's spiritual reality. It was a world where spirits and demons were not abstract concepts, but tangible presences, constantly interacting with human life. The shamans, with their terrifying insights and their perilous journeys into the unseen, were the guardians of this fragile balance, their lives dedicated to navigating the treacherous currents of the spiritual realm. You realize that in this ancient world, you were never truly alone. The unseen was always watching, always listening, and always terrifyingly present. The Inca believed that life itself was a gift from the gods, and to maintain cosmic harmony, something of immense value had to be given back. This concept, known as Aini, or reciprocity, permeated every aspect of their society, from communal labor to spiritual offerings. And when the stakes were highest, when drought threatened, when a new Sapa Inca ascended to the throne, or when victory in battle was desperately sought, the most profound gift they could offer was life itself. This wasn't a casual act, it was a deeply ritualized, solemn, and terrifying event, orchestrated by the shamans who understood the precise demands of the gods. You have navigated the terrifying unseen world of spirits and demons. But now, your attention shifts to the tangible, to the objects that served as conduits for the shaman's power. You are entering the inner sanctum of the shaman, a space filled with an array of artifacts, each imbued with spiritual significance, each a tool in their perilous craft. These are not mere trinkets. They are extensions of the shaman's will, channels for divine energy, and, sometimes, objects that hold a terrifying power of their own. You find yourself in a dimly lit chamber, perhaps a small, secluded hut, or a hidden alcove within a larger temple, where the air is thick with the scent of dried herbs and the palpable presence of ancient magic. You witness the preparations. Priests and shamans, adorned in their finest ceremonial garments, move with somber purpose. The atmosphere is heavy with anticipation, a mixture of dread and fervent hope. The chosen offerings are brought forward. For animal sacrifices, llamas and guinea pigs were the most common. You might see a pure white llama, its fleece meticulously cleaned, adorned with colorful tassels, led gently to the altar. Its eyes, wide and innocent, seemed to reflect the vast Andean sky, unaware of its impending fate. Every item in the shaman's collection had a purpose, a story, and a connection to the spiritual realm. From the mundane to the exotic, these tools were carefully selected, prepared, and consecrated to aid in healing, divination, protection, and communication with the unseen. You might see a collection of polished stones, each with a unique shape or color, arranged in a specific pattern. These aren't just rocks, they are illas, miniature representations of animals or crops, believed to attract abundance and fertility, or kanapas, personal fetishes imbued with spiritual power. You can almost feel the smooth, cool surface of a stone, sensing the ancient energy it holds. The sacrifice of animals, particularly llamas, was a daily or weekly occurrence in many Inca temples and sacred sites. The color of the llama often held significance: white for the sun, god Inti, brown for the earth goddess Pachamama. The animal would be carefully restrained, its heart quickly removed while still beating, a direct offering of life force to the deities. The entrails would then be examined by the shamans for omens and prophecies, their patterns revealing the will of the gods. You might hear the sharp, quick cry of the llama, followed by a sudden, profound silence, as its life ebbs away onto the sacred stone. It's a stark reminder of the constant exchange between the human and divine worlds. One of the most crucial tools was the ceremonial drinking vessel, often a kiro, a wooden cup, or a shell. These vessels were used to consume the potent hallucinogenic brews, like San Pedro cactus, that facilitated trance states and spiritual journeys. The karo itself would often be intricately carved with symbolic imagery, animals, geometric patterns, or figures representing deities and spirits, enhancing its sacred power. Imagine lifting such a cup to your lips, knowing that the liquid within will transport you to realms both wondrous and terrifying. But the most chilling of all Inca rituals, and perhaps the most terrifying, was the Kapak Hucha, or child sacrifice. This was not a frequent occurrence, but reserved for moments of extreme importance: the death of a Sapa Inca, a major famine, a devastating earthquake, or the expansion of the empire. The children chosen for Kapak Hucha were considered perfect, unblemished, and pure. They were seen as messengers to the gods, a pristine offering to avert disaster or secure divine favor. Imagine the horror of a family, honored yet devastated, as their child is chosen for this ultimate journey. A common historical fact is that the Inca were master metallurgists, particularly skilled in working with gold and silver. While much of their gold was used for elaborate ceremonial objects and adornments for the elite, shamans also utilized precious metals in their tools. Small figurines of gold or silver, often representing deities or animals, could serve as powerful amulets or offerings. These weren't just decorative. Their intrinsic value and connection to the earth's sacred elements made them potent conduits for spiritual energy. You might see a small, gleaming gold llama, its eyes seeming to hold ancient wisdom. A common historical fact is that the Inca Empire stretched over vast and diverse territories, from coastal deserts to high mountain ranges. This geographical diversity meant that the Kapak Hucha rituals were often performed at significant ceremonial sites across the empire, particularly on high mountain peaks, where the children would be closer to the celestial deities. The frozen, mummified remains of these children, preserved by the extreme cold, have been discovered centuries later, offering a haunting glimpse into these ancient, terrifying practices. Another vital tool was the chuspa, a finely woven coca bag. Coca leaves, as you know, were central to many Inca rituals, used for divination, offerings, and as a mild stimulant during long journeys or ceremonies. The chuspa was not just a container, it was a sacred object in itself, often adorned with intricate patterns and symbols that reflected the shaman's lineage or spiritual affiliations. The act of reaching into the chuspa to retrieve the leaves was a ritual in itself, a moment of connection with the plant spirits. You can almost feel the soft, worn fabric of the bag, smelling the faint, earthy aroma of dried coca leaves. The children, often boys and girls between the ages of 6 and 15, were treated with immense reverence in the months leading up to the ceremony. They were well fed, dressed in fine clothes, and paraded through the streets, celebrated as living embodiments of purity and sacrifice. This period was likely designed to prepare them, both physically and psychologically, for their sacred role. You might see a young girl, her face painted, adorned with feathers, being carried on a litter, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and perhaps a child's understanding of her profound destiny. The shaman's attire itself could be considered a tool, adorned with feathers, shells, animal skins, and painted designs. Their clothing was not just for show. Each element held symbolic meaning, connecting the shaman to specific animal spirits, celestial bodies, or ancestral powers. The feathers of a condor, for instance, might symbolize the ability to soar to the upper world, while jaguar teeth could represent ferocity and protection against malevolent forces. Imagine a shaman, his silhouette stark against the Andean sky, his feathered headdress rustling in the wind. Looking less like a man and more like a being from another realm, the journey to the high-altitude sacrificial sites could take weeks or months. The children, accompanied by priests and shamans, would embark on a pilgrimage, stopping at various huacas along the way, participating in feasts and ceremonies. This was not a forced march, but a sacred procession designed to elevate their spiritual state. As they ascended higher, the air grew colder, thinner, and the landscape more desolate, creating an increasingly otherworldly atmosphere. Historians still debate the precise meaning and function of every symbol found on Inca shamanic artifacts. While some interpretations are widely accepted, the nuanced spiritual language embedded in these objects often remains elusive, a testament to the depth and complexity of Inca belief systems. It raises the question how much spiritual knowledge is lost to time, hidden within these silent, ancient objects. Upon reaching the summit, the final rituals would commence. The children were often given chicha, a fermented corn beer, and coca leaves, which would induce a state of drowsiness and reduce their fear and pain. They might have been lulled to sleep, or simply succumbed to the cold and the effects of the substances before their lives were offered. The methods of sacrifice varied. Some were strangled, others struck on the head, and some simply left to succumb to the extreme cold and lack of oxygen, freezing to death in their sleep. You can almost feel the biting wind on the mountain peak, hear the hushed chants of the shamans, and imagine the last fading breaths of the innocent children. A lesser-known detail about Inca shamanic tools is the use of bone flutes or whistles. These instruments, often made from the bones of animals like llamas or even human bones, were not used for entertainment. Their haunting, ethereal sounds were believed to attract or repel spirits, to call upon deities, or to guide the shaman's soul during trance journeys. Imagine the chilling, high-pitched wail of a bone flute echoing through a mountain cave at night, a sound that could raise goosebumps on your skin, signaling the presence of unseen forces. It's certainly not the kind of music you'd put on your sleepy time playlist. Historians still debate the precise psychological state of the children during these rituals. Were they fully aware and terrified? Or were they in a state of drugged stupor, accepting their fate as a divine calling, while the evidence suggests the use of sedatives? The sheer terror of the situation, even for a child raised in such a belief system, must have been immense. It's a chilling thought, pondering the final moments of these young lives, offered as a bridge between humanity and the gods. For cleansing and purification rituals, shamans used various implements. Bundles of sacred herbs like muña or palo santo would be lit. Their smoke used to purify individuals, spaces, or objects. You might feel the pungent, cleansing smoke wafting around you, a physical sensation that signals the removal of negative energies. Animal parts, such as guinea pig skins or feathers, could also be used to sweep away illness or bad luck from a patient's body. A lesser-known detail about Capac Hucha is that the children were often buried with miniature figurines made of gold, silver, and shell, representing themselves and their companions. These elaborate grave goods suggest that the children were not simply discarded, but were believed to continue their journey in the afterlife, serving as eternal intermediaries with the deities. Imagine the tiny, perfectly crafted figures, buried alongside the children, a poignant testament to the Inca belief in an ongoing spiritual existence. It's a macabre form of dollhouse, if you think about it, but with very real, very tragic consequences. The tumi, a ceremonial knife with a distinctive semicircular blade, was another powerful artifact. While often associated with sacrifices, it was also used in healing rituals, particularly for spiritual cleansing or symbolic cutting away of illness. Its sharp blade symbolized the shaman's ability to sever ties with negative influences and to perform precise spiritual interventions. You might see the glint of the tumi in the shaman's hand, a tool of both life and death, healing and sacrifice. The shamans played a crucial role in these sacrifices. They were the ones who interpreted the omens, determined the appropriate offerings, and performed the sacred rites. They ensured that every step of the ritual was meticulously followed, for any deviation could anger the gods and render the sacrifice meaningless. Their knowledge of celestial alignments, agricultural cycles, and the specific demands of each deity guided these terrifying events. You can almost see the shaman's intense focus, his unwavering gaze as he performs the precise movements, ensuring the cosmic balance is maintained. Divination tools beyond coca leaves were also crucial. Small, polished mirrors made of obsidian or volcanic glass could be used for scrying, allowing the shaman to see visions or receive messages from the spirit world. Water basins, where the shaman would gaze into the reflections, could also serve a similar purpose. Imagine peering into the dark, reflective surface of an obsidian mirror, seeing not your own reflection, but fleeting images of the future, or the faces of ancient spirits. Beyond Capac Hucha, other forms of human sacrifice, though less common, also existed. Prisoners of war might be sacrificed to celebrate military victories, their hearts offered to the sun god. In times of extreme crisis, adults might volunteer or be chosen for sacrifice. While the scale was nowhere near that of the Aztecs, the underlying principle was the same. The most precious gift to the gods was life itself. You might hear the distant rhythmic drumming, a sound that signals a ceremony, and a shiver runs down your spine, wondering what life is about to be offered. The shaman's staff, often carved with symbolic figures or adorned with feathers and bells, was a powerful symbol of their authority and connection to the earth. It served as a walking aid during long spiritual journeys, but also as a magical implement used to direct energy, to mark sacred spaces, or to ward off malevolent spirits. You can almost feel the weight and power of the staff as the shaman grips it. A direct link to the ancient energies of the Andes, the reasons behind these sacrifices were deeply embedded in the Inca worldview. They believed that the world was constantly in flux, susceptible to imbalance. Droughts, floods, earthquakes, and diseases were seen as signs of divine displeasure or disruption in the cosmic order. Sacrifices were a desperate attempt to restore that balance, to nourish the gods, and to ensure the continued prosperity of the empire. It was a terrifying form of cosmic insurance, paid for in blood. The terrifying aspect of these tools was their potential to be misused, or to draw unwanted attention from powerful spirits. A tool not properly consecrated or used with ill intent could backfire, causing harm to the shaman or the community. The shaman's knowledge of rituals and proper handling was paramount, a constant vigilance against spiritual missteps. It's like handling a powerful electrical current. One wrong move, and you could be severely shocked. You might wonder, as a modern observer, how such practices could be justified. But for the Inca, it was a matter of survival. The gods were real, their power absolute, and their demands unyielding. To refuse a sacrifice was to invite catastrophe upon the entire community. The shamans, burdened with this knowledge, were the ones who had to make these horrifying decisions, to guide their people through the most extreme acts of devotion. It's a heavy burden, knowing that the fate of thousands rests on your ability to interpret divine will, even if that will demand the ultimate price. You might hear a story of a shaman who, in a moment of arrogance, used a sacred drum without performing the necessary purification rituals. The drum, instead of calling benevolent spirits, attracted a host of malevolent entities, plaguing the village with nightmares and misfortune until another, more experienced shaman intervened. Such tales served as a chilling reminder of the power and danger inherent in these sacred objects. The legacy of these sacrificial rituals continues to haunt the imagination. They stand as a stark reminder of the profound differences in worldview between ancient civilizations and our own. While we recoil from the brutality, for the Inca, these acts were born of a deep, albeit terrifying, spiritual logic, a desperate attempt to maintain harmony with a powerful and unpredictable cosmos. The echoes of those ancient cries, the whispers of the shamans, and the chilling silence of the high mountain peaks still resonate, a testament to the extreme lengths humanity will go to connect with the divine. The creation of these tools was often a ritualistic process in itself. The materials were carefully chosen, often from sacred sites, and crafted with specific intentions and prayers. The act of making the tool imbued it with spiritual energy, making it a living extension of the shaman's power. This meant that each tool was unique, carrying the personal spiritual imprint of its maker and user. You breathe a sigh of relief, stepping away from the chilling echoes of sacrifice, only to find yourself facing another facet of the shaman's terrifying power, their dual capacity for healing and cursing. This is where the shaman becomes both the beacon of hope and the harbinger of dread, a figure whose touch can bring life or inflict unimaginable suffering. You are now in a village setting, perhaps a humble dwelling, or a bustling communal space, where the shaman's presence is felt in every whisper of illness and every murmur of misfortune. As the last embers of the fire glow faintly, casting dancing shadows across the shaman's tools, you realize that these objects are more than just artifacts. They are tangible links to the unseen world, repositories of ancient knowledge, and conduits for terrifying power. They are the silent witnesses to countless rituals, battles with demons, and journeys into the depths of the cosmos. And as you drift deeper into the night, you know that the shaman, armed with these powerful artifacts, is never truly alone in their perilous quest to navigate the terrifying practices of the ancient Inca. The shaman, as you've learned, is a bridge. And that bridge can be used for passage in two directions to bring benevolent forces into the human realm for healing, or to channel malevolent energies for curses. This duality isn't seen as contradictory by the Inca. It's a reflection of the cosmos itself, where light and shadow, creation and destruction, are inextricably linked. you observe a shaman, perhaps a kolahuaya, a master herbalist and healer, preparing for a consultation. His hands, though gnarled with age, move with a precise, almost surgical grace as he lays out a collection of dried herbs, polished stones, and small pouches. You have journeyed through the terrifying practices of the ancient Inca shamans, from their arduous training and hallucinogenic voyages to their chilling sacrifices and their mastery over unseen spirits and powerful artifacts. Now, as the narrative draws to a close, you find yourself back in the present, yet the echoes of their world still resonate through the majestic Andes. The sun, Inti, still casts its golden light upon the peaks, and Pachamama, the earth, still breathes beneath your feet. But how much of their ancient, terrifying wisdom, their profound connection to the cosmos, truly endures? When illness strikes, whether it's a persistent fever, a debilitating pain, or a mysterious wasting sickness, the first thought of the Inca would often turn to spiritual causes. Was it an offended huaca, a malevolent spirit sent by an enemy, or perhaps a transgression against the cosmic order? The shaman's role was not merely to treat symptoms, but to diagnose the spiritual root of the affliction. You might approach him, your body racked with tremors, desperate for answers that no ordinary healer could provide. The arrival of the Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century brought a violent and abrupt end to the Inca Empire as a political entity. However, it did not erase the deeply ingrained spiritual beliefs and practices that had sustained the Andean people for millennia. The shamans, the Pacos, and Altamisayocs did not simply vanish. Instead, their traditions went underground, adapting, transforming, and often blending with the new Christian influences imposed by the conquerors. You might imagine them retreating into the remote mountain communities, preserving their sacred knowledge in secret, whispering ancient chants under the cover of night. The healing practices of the Inca shamans were incredibly sophisticated, blending empirical knowledge of medicinal plants with profound spiritual interventions. A common historical fact is that the Inca were skilled surgeons, capable of trepanation drilling holes into the skull to treat head injuries, often with remarkable success rates. But even these physical interventions were often accompanied by shamanic rituals, prayers, and the use of psychoactive plants to aid in the healing process and address the spiritual dimension of the injury. Imagine the shaman, not just with surgical tools, but with burning incense and chanting, working on both your body and your soul. A common historical fact is that the Spanish actively suppressed indigenous religions, destroying huacas, burning sacred texts if any existed beyond Quipu, and persecuting shamans. Yet, despite this brutal repression, many Andean spiritual practices survived, often by syncretizing with Catholic rituals and saints. A mountain apu might become associated with a specific Christian saint, or ancient healing rituals might be performed alongside Catholic prayers. This adaptability was a testament to the resilience of the Inca spiritual worldview. It's like trying to stamp out a fire, but instead it just goes underground and smolders, waiting for its chance to flare up again. For diagnosis, the shaman might employ various methods. One common technique involved the use of a guinea pig, ki. The shaman would pass the live animal over the patient's body, believing that the guinea pig would absorb the negative energies or spirits causing the illness. After the ritual, the guinea pig might be sacrificed, and its entrails examined for clues about the nature of the disease. You might flinch as the small animal squeals, its fate intertwined with your own. It sacrificed a diagnostic tool. It's certainly more dramatic than a modern blood test, isn't it? Today, in many remote communities across the Andes, the descendants of the Inca continue to practice forms of traditional shamanism. While some of the more extreme practices, like Kapak Hucha, have long since ceased, the fundamental principles of reciprocity, Aini, ancestor veneration, and the profound respect for Pachamama and the Apus remain vibrant. You might encounter a modern Paco in a small village, still reading coca leaves, still performing cleansing rituals, still acting as a bridge between the human and spiritual worlds. Another diagnostic method involved divination with coca leaves. The shaman would toss a handful of coca leaves onto a cloth, interpreting the patterns they formed, the way they landed, and their orientation. Each leaf, each cluster, held a message from the spiritual realm, revealing the cause of the illness or the path to recovery. You watch intently as the shaman's eyes scan the scattered leaves, his brow furrowed in concentration. Deciphering the cryptic language of the spirits, a lesser-known detail is that many contemporary Andean shamans still utilize some of the same plant teachers, albeit often with a deeper understanding of their medicinal and psychological effects, and within a more integrated, less overtly terrifying spiritual framework. The San Pedro cactus, for instance, continues to be used in healing ceremonies, guiding individuals towards self-discovery and spiritual insight, rather than purely for intense, fear-inducing journeys. Imagine a gentle ceremony, a quiet communion with the plant spirit, a far cry from the terrifying visions you explored earlier. Once the spiritual diagnosis was made, the healing ritual would commence. This could involve a limpia, a spiritual cleansing, where the shaman would use smoke from sacred herbs or sweep the patient's body with specific plants or eggs to literally brush away negative energies or malevolent spirits. You might feel the smoke stinging your eyes, or the gentle brush of leaves against your skin, as the shaman works to purify your aura. The concept of huacas also endures. While the grand imperial huacas might be ruins, local communities still revere specific mountains, springs, and rock formations as sacred sites, places where the veil between worlds is thin. Pilgrimages to these huacas continue, with offerings of coca leaves, chicha, and prayers made to ensure blessings and maintain harmony. You might find yourself standing before a towering peak, feeling the same ancient reverence that the Inca felt millennia ago, understanding that its power is still very much alive. For more severe spiritual afflictions, the shaman might undertake a soul retrieval journey. It was believed that in times of trauma, fear, or illness, a part of the soul could become lost or stolen by malevolent spirits. The shaman, often entering a trance state through the use of hallucinogenic plants, would journey into the Uku Pacha to locate and retrieve the lost soul fragment, bringing it back to the patient. Imagine the shaman's body lying still, while his spirit battles demons in the underworld to bring back a piece of your very essence. It's like a cosmic scavenger hunt, but with much higher stakes. Historians still debate the extent to which modern Andean shamanism is a direct, unbroken lineage from the ancient Inca, or if it represents a complex evolution influenced by centuries of colonial rule and cultural exchange. While there are undeniable continuities, the practices have certainly adapted and transformed over time, making a clear, linear connection challenging to trace. It raises the question how much of the terrifying aspect was a product of a specific historical context, and how much is an inherent part of the spiritual journey itself. A lesser-known detail about Inca healing is their advanced knowledge of herbal medicine. Beyond the psychoactive plants, they utilized a vast array of plants for specific ailments. For example, the bark of the cinchona tree, containing quinine, was used to treat malaria long before Europeans discovered its properties. They also used plants like Muna Andean mint for digestive issues and Uña de Gato cat's claw for its anti-inflammatory properties. The shamans were not just spiritual guides. They were highly skilled botanists and pharmacists. Their knowledge passed down through generations. You can almost smell the pungent, earthy aroma of the various herbs laid out, each with its own specific purpose. The terrifying practices of the ancient Inca shamans, though perhaps softened by time and cultural shifts, leave a profound legacy. They remind us of humanity's deep-seated need to understand the unknown, to connect with forces beyond our comprehension, and to seek meaning in a vast and often unpredictable cosmos. They highlight the extreme lengths to which people will go to maintain balance, to heal, and to navigate the mysteries of life and death. Now, let's turn to the darker side of the shaman's power, the ability to cast curses. While their primary role was to maintain harmony and heal, the Inca also believed that shamans could harness negative energies to inflict harm upon enemies, rivals, or those who had committed grave injustices. This was not a power to be wielded lightly, as it carried immense spiritual risk for the shaman themselves, but it was a recognized and feared aspect of their capabilities. You might hear whispers in the village of a rival chieftain suddenly falling ill, or a thief suffering a series of misfortunes, and the finger of suspicion often points to a shaman's dark work. You might hear a story from a modern-day Andean elder, recounting how their grandmother, a village healer, would still consult with the spirits of the mountains before planting crops, or how she would use a special stone to ward off illness. These are not just quaint folk tales. They are living testaments to a spiritual tradition that has stubbornly refused to die. a quiet defiance against centuries of suppression. It's like a faint, ancient melody that still plays in the wind, even if you can't quite make out all the notes. The methods for casting curses were varied and often involved symbolic magic. A shaman might create a small effigy of the target, then perform rituals involving piercing, burning, or burying the effigy, believing that whatever happened to the representation would happen to the person. Or they might use specific herbs and incantations designed to invoke malevolent spirits to plague the victim with illness, bad luck, or even death. Imagine the shaman, his face grim, working in the dead of night, muttering ancient words over a small, crude doll, knowing that his actions will bring suffering. It's like a very real, very terrifying version of a voodoo doll. The very landscape of the Andes, with its towering peaks, deep valleys, and ancient ruins, serves as a constant reminder of the Incas' spiritual world. Every stone seems to whisper stories of rituals, sacrifices, and the shamans who walked among gods and demons. The air itself feels imbued with their presence, a lingering echo of their profound beliefs. You realize that even now in the modern world, the ancient Inca shamans are not truly gone. Their spirit, their legacy, and the echoes of their terrifying practices continue to shape the very soul of the Andes. The fear of curses was pervasive in Inca society. If someone experienced a sudden, unexplained misfortune, illness, or death, a shaman would often be consulted to determine if a curse was at play. This could lead to intense social suspicion and accusations, as communities grappled with the invisible forces believed to be at work. You might feel a sudden chill down your spine as a neighbor falls sick, and you wonder if they have offended someone powerful enough to seek a shaman's curse. As the final words settle and the images of ancient mountains and whispered rituals begin to fade, allow your mind to gently release the grip of these tales. The terrifying practices, the profound beliefs, the unseen worlds, they all recede into the soft shadows of your consciousness. Feel the gentle hum of the fan, the quiet stillness of the night around you. The journey through the ancient Inca cosmos is complete, and you are safe, tucked away in the comfort of your own space. Let the lingering echoes of the Andes lull you into a deep, peaceful slumber, knowing that the mysteries of the past, though sometimes unsettling, are now just whispers in the wind. Historians still debate the true efficacy of these curses. While modern science would dismiss them as superstition, the psychological impact on the victim, who firmly believed in the shaman's power, could be profound. The sheer fear and anxiety induced by the belief that one was cursed could lead to psychosomatic illness, or even a fatal loss of will. Was it supernatural power, or the terrifying power of belief? Perhaps it was a combination, where the belief itself became a potent weapon,